the United States and its allies, and we will do everything necessary in order to defend the security of the United States. Facilities like Guantanamo, for example, have been extremely successful in the defense of the United States. No less than 32 al-Qaeda terrorist attacks have been foiled in recent years.
These drone attacks have left hundreds of civilians dead. The United States justifies it on the basis that it is part of its military action authorized by Congress. These attacks have increased exponentially under Obama. In fact, they've trebled. Scott Horton.
Well, I think that Niall's correct on one point. That is, to the extent drones are used as a weapon of warfare on a theater of war, attacking a legitimate target, there's no violation of international law there. But to the extent they're a miss, they don't strike a legitimate target, the intelligence was bad, they have horrible ramifications for the United States. I think the U.S. started this process very, very badly, and it's improved it, but the level of use of drones still raises a lot of questions. The most serious problem will be targeted executions, targeted killings that occur away from the field of battle. So if they're occurring in Yemen or Somalia, or if they're occurring on the streets in West Germany, and we have credible information that the Bush administration actually planned such an assassination, that would be a different matter, and that would be very serious. We've got the Obama administration now going to a federal court arguing effectively that the president has the right to authorize and direct the killing of an American citizen. That's a shocking claim of presidential power. They should be seeking to arrest this person if they can do it. They'd be authorized to use these extraordinary means only if they can justify war circumstances and the application of military law.
All right, in the time we've got remaining to us, I want to turn to some of the other elements that were contained in the discussions in the Human Rights Council. Of course, human rights not being simply about political and civic rights, but also about economic, social, and cultural rights. The U.S., Christina Finch, very quick to criticize some of its enemies, Cuba, Iran, other countries, about their treatment of minorities. What has the Obama administration done to reverse the Bush administration policy of dealing with its native population, Native Americans, who remain to this day largely confined to their reservations?
Well, thank you for bringing that issue up. The treatment of Native peoples is of extreme concern to Amnesty International. One measure that the Obama administration has taken to improve the condition of Native American and Alaska Native women is to sign the Tribal Law and Order Act, which will help reduce sexual violence against women in Indian country. Amnesty issued a report several years ago, about 2 years ago now, called Maze of Injustice, that detailed the shocking rates of sexual violence against women in Indian country. In one reservation, our researchers could not find a woman who had not been sexually assaulted. And it's important to note that almost 90% of these attacks are perpetrated by non-native citizens.
And in addition to all that, there are also, of course, accusations of the U.S. government constantly handing territory that belongs to these tribes, the Western Shoshone tribes, for example, to big corporations like Halliburton to continue to extract reserves such as gold, uranium ore, to continue to conduct nuclear tests as well. Should that be allowed to continue, Niall Gardner?
I have to say that this comparison of Indian reservations in the United States with, for example, what the Iranian government is doing to its own people, I think is completely ludicrous. And the United States guarantees freedom for all of its citizens, regardless of race, creed, background. And I do think it's rather farcical to be comparing what's happening in the United States with real human rights violations being carried out by government authorities in many countries in the world. And that should be the focus of the Human Rights Council Universal Periodic Review. The United States does more to defend the rights of all of its citizens, frankly, than any country on the face of the earth. That's a record to be tremendously proud of. And there's no evidence whatsoever that the government is suppressing any single minority organization in the United States. So
Scott
let's
Horton,
keep the focus upon
you get the final
real
word on this.
State human rights violations.
Yeah, I think Niles was revealing his ignorance of the system and the way it works, because the United Nations has exercised a special role of responsibility in the protection of Aboriginal peoples. That goes back a long time, back to the mandate system. And it's absolutely correct for the UN to wade in here. And there are very serious issues concerning the way Native Americans are able to exercise control over their land and their property, particularly with respect to mineral rights. It's an issue the United States shares, particularly with Canada and Australia. Absolutely legitimate point. We haven't even gotten to the criminal justice system, and there we're seeing very powerful evidence put forward that there's a 2- or 3-tiered system in the United States, that members of racial minorities, particularly blacks, are far more likely to be prosecuted and receive far higher sentences than whites in the United States, especially on drug-related offenses. The United States really doesn't even have a response to that. It's acknowledged the validity of the data that's been collected.
Much more to discuss, but unfortunately we have to leave it there. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us. In New York, Scott Horton; in Washington, D.C., Niall Gardner; and in Geneva, Christina Finch. And thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments as always and your suggestions. You can email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks for watching.